a small, quiet room inside one of London's most upscale homes. From the outside, everything looked perfectly normal. But inside that room, a 21-year-old innocent girl was dying a little more each day. And when her body was finally reduced to ashes, the world discovered just how monstrous the people living behind that beautiful, wealthy facade truly were. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Lucas and you're watching Who Was, where we bring you some of the most twisted and disturbing crime cases from around the world. Today's story is about Sabrina Kouider, a woman who spent her life chasing fame, money, and luxury. And when her dreams began to fall apart, she unleashed her rage on an innocent, defenseless young girl. This is a story of greed, false glamour, and a cruelty so extreme it makes you question how far a human being can fall. Let's begin. Sabrina Kouider was born on December 5, 1982, in a suburb of London. Her parents were of French and Algerian heritage, and that unique mix likely gave her the striking looks that would later become one of her greatest tools. She was the eldest of 4 children, and at home she was constantly praised and treated as the golden child. From a very young age, she was made to feel special, and that very feeling would go on to become one of her greatest flaws. At age 2, her entire family moved to France and settled in Paris, where Sabrina spent her childhood and youth. But even in her school years, her true nature began to show. Former classmates remember her as arrogant, self-absorbed, and someone who looked down on everyone around her. She had few friends because she believed she was better than everyone else, and she viewed other bright, outgoing girls as rivals and enemies. Sabrina truly was strikingly beautiful, tall, dark-haired, with a figure that could have made her a successful model. But her real weakness was that she never learned how to build genuine relationships with people. She only knew how to use people, never how to love them. As a child, she was active in sports and had some interest in music, but her impatience and unwillingness to put in real effort kept her from succeeding in any field. Later, Sabrina claimed that her relatives in France had mistreated her as a child, but her own family never confirmed this. On the contrary, they insisted she was always spoiled and constantly craved attention. As a teenager while playing sports, she injured her back, which led to a dependency on painkillers. She tried to obtain these drugs illegally, which led to her arrest and a police warning. Sabrina was always completely absorbed in herself and her appearance. She was certain her future held a wealthy, glamorous life, mingling with celebrities, achieving stardom of her own. At times, it seemed her fantasies had grown so large that they had disconnected her from reality. She believed her rightful place was in Hollywood. She earned a degree in English and French literature from the Sorbonne, but from 2006 onward, she began calling herself a stylist, a makeup artist, a fashion designer, despite having no real training or experience in any of these fields. This was the beginning of Sabrina Kouider, a woman who believed she was superior to everyone around her, yet lacked the effort, patience, or empathy to ever prove it. Now let's see how the first man entered her life, a man she would treat as nothing more than a stepping stone. After finishing school, Sabrina was still unclear about what she wanted from life. She felt entitled to everything without having to work for it. Around this time, she enrolled at the prestigious Sorbonne University while also working at a sweet shop to support herself. It was there, at the age of 18, that she met Wissam Mouzaoui. Mouzaoui, 6 years older than Sabrina, was a manager at the head office of a major French company and was pursuing a master's degree at one of Paris's top universities. He wasn't particularly handsome, nor part of any elite circle, but he fell so deeply in love with Sabrina that he was willing to fulfill her every wish. Sabrina found him appealing too, not out of love, but because she saw him as ambitious and capable, someone who could become her ticket to a wealthy life. The two began living together in 2000. Very quickly, Sabrina revealed her true nature. She wanted to control every aspect of Mouzaoui's life. If her demands weren't met, she would throw tantrums, manipulate him, and sometimes even become physically violent. Worse still, she openly cheated on him without any shame. With strangers, with his friends, with his colleagues. She never felt any need to hide it or justify it. Mouzaoui tried several times to end the relationship, but each time he returned, unable to break free from his love for her. In 2001, he completed his master's degree and received a significant promotion, earning a substantial income, all of which he spent on Sabrina's luxurious clothes and entertainment. His family also owned several properties in Paris, and the rental income from those too went straight to Sabrina. Reportedly, in the fall of 2001, the couple had a religious Muslim marriage ceremony, evidenced by a certificate, but this ceremony held no legal standing. They had a son together, whom Mouzaoui officially recognized as his own. Years later, however, a Frenchman named Anthony Francois claimed that he was actually the child's father. Francois, testifying at Sabrina's trial, described her as volatile, unpredictable, promiscuous, and manipulative. This was the relationship between Sabrina and Mouzaoui. Blind love on one side, selfishness and betrayal on the other. But this was only the beginning. In the years ahead, Sabrina was about to make a decision that would change everything. In 2008, the global financial crisis hit, and Wissam Mouzaoui's company went bankrupt, costing him his well-paying job. Around this time, Sabrina became fixated on the idea of moving to London. She believed London, one of the world's great financial hubs, could give her the success Paris never had. Without much consultation with Mouzaoui, Sabrina decided to move to London. He had little choice but to follow her. Once in London, Mouzaoui quickly found work at a major English bank. But things weren't so easy for Sabrina. Her dream of becoming a designer, model, or makeup artist was held back by her lack of real experience in formal training. Over time, she had to lower her expectations. She worked as a nanny, in a call center, at a cafe, and even tried her hand at network marketing. But the same old hunger for fame and wealth still burned inside her. Every failure made her more restless, and her frustration kept growing. During this period, tension between her and Mouzaoui also grew, as money ran short while her desires kept increasing. But Sabrina wasn't one to give up. She revived her teenage passion for music, now calling herself a musician and composer. She began attending auditions and social events, hoping for her big break. And then, at one of these very social events, she met a man who would change the course of her life. Mark Walton, once a member of the famous Irish boy band Boyzone, now a successful music producer. This meeting would prove to be the opportunity Sabrina had always dreamed of, or perhaps the beginning of her greatest downfall. By this point, Mark Walton had become one of the most successful music producers in the world. After leaving Boyzone, he had worked with major stars like Jennifer Lopez, Jessica Simpson, and Lady Gaga. And by 2016, his net worth exceeded $1 billion. When Sabrina met Mark, it must have felt like all her dreams were finally coming true. Here was the man who could give her the world she had always longed for. Sabrina charmed Mark with her beauty and personality so effectively that he openly admitted he had fallen in love at first sight, unable to think of anyone but her. The relationship moved forward so quickly that Sabrina immediately ended things with Mouzaoui, without any thought for the son they shared. She had no concern for that. All she could see was her glamorous new future. Within weeks, the couple was living together in a luxurious house in one of London's most upscale neighborhoods. Mark covered all the expenses, including rent for the lavish home Sabrina had chosen. For several months, Sabrina lived the opulent life she had always dreamed of. Parties with celebrities, elite events, designer clothes, and appearances in glossy magazines. It felt for her like a dream come true. But as always, Sabrina's insecurity and fear soon surfaced. She was terrified of losing Mark, and this fear turned into jealousy toward every woman around him. Her demands kept growing, more gifts, more luxury. Mark indulged her with designer clothing, jewelry, and outings to expensive restaurants and clubs. But it was never enough for her. Their home saw a constant turnover of staff and nannies, as Sabrina's paranoia convinced her they were either stealing or trying to seduce Mark. Her irrational behavior eventually pushed Mark past his breaking point. In 2011, he ended the relationship and left for California, leaving Sabrina with nothing. Losing Mark also meant losing the lavish lifestyle she had grown used to, and the shock of it drove her to make false accusations of abuse and drug use against him, to call him crying and begging him to come back, and even to threaten suicide. But Mark never returned. After losing Mark Walton, Sabrina reached out to Wissam Mouzaoui once again. Mouzaoui, whose career was now thriving as a bank executive, immediately forgave her and took her back, because he still loved her. The two began living together again, and shortly afterward, Sabrina discovered she was pregnant. She immediately informed Mark Walton. Through his lawyers, Walton agreed to provide a monthly allowance for the child, but only after a paternity test following the birth. Sabrina flatly refused to take the test. This refusal spoke volumes. Perhaps she herself wasn't sure who the father truly was. Instead of agreeing to the test, Sabrina demanded that Walton double the proposed allowance. When he refused, she launched a full-scale attack against him. She took to social media, spreading false claims that Walton was obsessed with her, insanely jealous of Mouzaoui, and threatening them physically. She even claimed he had broken into their home, assaulted Mouzaoui, terrified the children, and assaulted her. But all of this proved false, since Walton had a solid alibi. He had been in the United States ever since their breakup. Only after Walton filed a defamation lawsuit and police threatened to take action against her did Sabrina stop making these accusations. She then settled in Wimbledon, southwest London, with Mouzaoui and their 2 children, appearing on the surface to lead a quiet life. But this calm was only skin deep. Beneath it, Sabrina's ambitions, her jealousy, and her irrational thinking were still very much alive. And soon, all of it would turn toward an innocent young girl who had come to London simply hoping to work hard and build a better future. Sabrina Kouider found it difficult to manage the household and care for 2 children, so she decided to hire a nanny who could also help around the house. She posted a job advertisement online and personally conducted interviews. Many candidates didn't meet her expectations, and those who did rarely stayed long. Around this time, a young French woman named Sophie Lionnet responded to the ad. Sophie was only 19 at the time and living in her hometown in France, so the interview was conducted over video call. She was a simple, gentle girl who agreed to every condition: childcare, housework, cooking, all for a symbolic wage of just 50 British pounds a week, which included room and board. Sophie was born on January 7, 1996, in the small French town of Troyes. Her parents, Catherine and Patrick Lionnet, were hardworking, modest people. After finishing school, Sophie earned a diploma in childcare, but rather than working in her small hometown, she dreamed of building a future in a big city. Known for being shy, quiet, and plain-looking, but deeply kind-hearted, Sophie was loved by everyone who knew her. She wore glasses due to poor eyesight, which made her a little self-conscious. During the interview itself, Sabrina realized that this simple, unassuming girl would be the perfect target for her manipulation. Sophie badly wanted experience and good references, and was therefore willing to work for very little pay. To her, Sabrina seemed like a serious, trustworthy employer, something she happily told her parents before leaving for London. The first few months went well. Sophie quickly bonded with the children, handled the housework as agreed, and even found time to improve her English and explore the city. But this peace wouldn't last. Trouble began when Mouzaoui lost his job, and the family's only stable income became the monthly child support payments from Walton. The financial pressure made Sabrina increasingly irritable and aggressive. She demanded more money from Walton again, and once again, he requested a paternity test. Money grew tighter, rent and daily expenses piled up, But Sabrina refused to give up her luxurious lifestyle and instead began taking out all her anger on the young nanny. The couple tried starting a bakery business with their remaining savings, but it failed. Sabrina then asked Walton for a large sum to launch her own clothing line, and he flatly refused. She cried, complained endlessly about poverty, and constantly vented to Sophie about her ex-lover, who tried her best to comfort her employer. It was here that a horrifying plan took shape in Sabrina's mind. She decided to use Sophie as a weapon to blackmail Walton. She wanted to present Sophie as Walton's lover and accomplice, claiming he had deliberately planted her in their home to destroy their lives and endanger the children. Sabrina believed that if she could get Sophie to confess this on camera, she could hand it to the police and extract a large payout from Walton. But Sophie refused to give any false statement. According to some accounts, due to her mental disorder, Sabrina had genuinely come to believe her own conspiracy theory, that Sophie truly was an enemy planted in their home. Whatever the reason, Sophie's life was about to become a living nightmare. Bit by bit, her workload increased without any raise in pay. She was made to work from dawn until late into the night, with no personal time, effectively trapped within the walls of the house. Her pay was stopped completely, and her passport was confiscated to prevent her from escaping. Her contact with her family back home was now closely monitored. As time went on, Sophie's suffering grew even more horrific. She was barely fed and constantly pressured to give false testimony against a man she had never even met. Communication with her consisted only of screaming, insults, and threats. She was falsely accused of theft and threatened with imprisonment if she didn't comply. When threats and blackmail didn't work, Sabrina and Mouzaoui turned to even crueler methods. Sophie was moved into a cold, dark basement where she spent all her free time. She was fed only once or twice a day, growing weaker and thinner by the day. But the cold and hunger were only the beginning. The real horror was yet to come. The physical abuse began with slaps and hair pulling, but escalated dramatically the day Sabrina broke Sophie's nose. The sight of blood seemed to unleash something in Sabrina, and from that point on, daily beatings became routine. Each day brought a new form of cruelty designed to inflict unbearable pain. That basement, inside a wealthy London home, had truly become a torture chamber. Police later discovered video recordings from the house showing Sophie being tortured and coerced into making a false confession. She was beaten with fists, an iron cord, a golf club, and even subjected to electric shocks. She was humiliated to the point of having her head forced into a toilet until she nearly suffocated. All of this was happening inside a beautiful house that, from the outside, gave no hint of what lay within. But one day, Sabrina herself took Sophie somewhere she probably believed she could still control the narrative: a police station. In the late summer of 2017, Sabrina Kouider brought Sophie Lionnet to a police station, claiming Sophie was ready to testify against Mark Walton, alleging a romantic and criminal relationship between them, and that he had sent her to harm the children. But Sophie stayed silent, refusing to say what Sabrina wanted. The police decided to speak with her privately, taking her into a separate room. Sabrina was furious, terrified that Sophie might reveal the horrors happening in their home. But strangely, Sophie chose not to disclose anything or ask for help, perhaps out of fear, or perhaps because she didn't believe anyone would help her, or feared for her own safety and that of her family. The police's response was equally puzzling. Despite seeing a malnourished, frightened, and visibly weakened young woman, they didn't call a doctor or a psychologist. At the time, the 21-year-old nanny weighed less than 40 kilograms, had lost much of her hair, was missing a front tooth, and walked with a noticeable limp. And yet, none of this raised any red flags for the officers, who simply let everyone go home. This moment may well have been Sophie's last real chance to be saved, but fate had other plans.
It's heartbreaking to think that if even one officer had paid closer attention that day,
Sophie might still be alive today. But time had already written a different ending, and the tragic moment that would end her life was drawing near. A few weeks later, Sophie made one final phone call to her mother, sobbing, telling her she wanted to come home but had no money. Her mother, Catherine, without asking too many questions, told her she would buy her a ticket and asked her to pack her bags right away. It would be the last time she ever heard her daughter's voice. On the evening of September 20th, 2017, the Kouider's neighbors called the police. They weren't so much alarmed by a fire in the yard as by a sickeningly sweet, greasy smell coming from it. One neighbor later said he immediately recognized it as the smell of burning flesh and hair, and the thick smoke that spread half a block instantly clung to clothes and skin. Firefighters and police arrived at the scene. The homeowners, appearing calm and seemingly unaware of why emergency services had come, met them outside. After the fire was put out, what looked like a charred human hand was found in the ashes. Both were immediately taken into custody, and severely burned human remains were recovered from the fire. The body was so badly burned that its age and gender couldn't be determined, but it was soon identified as Sophie Lionnet, recognized by the melted metal frame of her glasses, still fused to her skull, the very glasses she always wore. Forensic experts found multiple rib fractures, cracks in her jaw, and evidence of blunt force trauma to her skull and limbs, proof that these injuries had been inflicted while she was still alive. Several of her teeth were missing, and her nose was severely damaged. It was clear that Sophie had endured prolonged, brutal beatings that had broken her bones and knocked out her teeth. The extent of the fire damage made it impossible to examine her internal organs or identify any other wounds. The horrifying video recordings found in the house, showing Sophie being tortured and coerced into confessing to a conspiracy with Walton, laid bare the true, sadistic nature of her captors. Experts believe Sophie likely died of asphyxiation before her body was burned, sparing her, at least, from the agony of being burned alive. Sabrina Kouider and Wissam Mouzaoui denied any guilt and showed no remorse for their horrific crime. Immediately after the murder, Mouzaoui calmly went to a nearby supermarket to buy firelighter fluid to burn the body and to pick up dinner for his family, as though nothing unusual had happened at all. The first court hearings against the couple began in March 2018. Sabrina tried to portray herself as the real victim, blaming Mark Walton for driving her to a pathological state through his supposed torment. Medical examinations confirmed she had mental disorders, but she was not found insane and was fully capable of understanding her actions. Mouzaoui, physically healthy, was found to be psychologically dependent on Sabrina, blindly obedient to her every word. One of Sabrina's former partners testified in court, describing her as a cunning manipulator, not a madwoman, someone who calculated her every move with chilling precision. Another witness said she always invented enemies, but did so rationally, driven entirely by selfish motives. On June 26, 2018, the court found the couple guilty of torturing, humiliating, and murdering their nanny under aggravating circumstances. Both were sentenced to life in prison, eligible for parole only after 30 years. Neither ever admitted guilt, and both continued appealing in hopes of reducing their sentences. Sabrina even tried to feign insanity, hoping to be transferred from prison to a psychiatric hospital, but it didn't work. Mark Walton, who was present at the trial, expressed deep sorrow over his ex-partner's actions, acknowledging that she may have done all of this to gain his attention and extract money from him. He offered his heartfelt condolences to Sophie's parents and voluntarily gave them a substantial sum of money in memory of the beloved daughter they had lost forever. That was the tragic story of Sabrina Kouider and Sophie Lionnet, a story that reminds us just how far the hunger for fame and money can push a person toward cruelty. Sophie was an innocent, hardworking young woman who simply wanted to build a better life for herself, but ended up in the hands of the wrong people and paid for it with her life. If you enjoyed this video and want us to bring you more shocking and gripping true crime stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit like, and ring the bell so you never miss our next upload. See you in the next story. Until then, take care.